I'm on Indianola Avenue as it intersects with Oak Hill Avenue, the beginning of Oak Hill Avenue, which used to be Mill Street way back in the days gone by. Probably paid tribute to the Mahoning Valley steel industry, which lasted over 175 years. In the background there, you can see fire station number 2 here again on Indianola Avenue, as is also known as Route 62, as it cascades west, if you will, towards Canfield. Let me rotate around here. You'll see some very historic churches that were strewn across the whole area, if you will, all the way down as I travel down Oak Hill Avenue today. I've just passed by Cleveland, if you will, Princeton, LeCleve, and now Dewey Avenues. I'm at the intersection of Dewey and Oak Hill as I continue the journey and cascade down this great, long, if you will, historical street. I've just passed by St. Louis in Chicago, as you see in the background there. As I rotate across here, you can see right now I'm at the very historic, I would like to call it, Boys and Girls Club, founded in 1969. The Boys Club was initially conjoined with a church that was right at the corner of Evergreen in Oak Hill, if you will, and then later on that portion of the church was knocked down. They utilized their gymnasium in the beginning, but now the Boys and Girls Club, as you see, is a free standalone building. It didn't always start off that way. Of course, 1969, when they formed, they knew that they would rebuild going forward, and they did. I think in the late 80s, early 90s, they brought girls on board because, like I've mentioned, initially it was called the Boys Club, but now it is the Boys and Girls Club of Youngstown. Through the years, the Boys and Girls Club have been able to garner, if you will, a lot of federal dollars and state dollars as they're continuing to grow and are a mainstay on the city's south side. Please continue to come along with me as I walk down this very historic Oak Hill Avenue. Remember, I said at the beginning of the piece that it started off as Mill Street. I take it it was in tribute to the steel industry that was in the community, as I mentioned, well over 175 years. In the background there, you see St. Luke's Church. St. Luke's Church, the mainstay on the city of Youngstown, south side as well, and they have been utilized a few times as different churches, but it's still up and standing. That building came online back in the early 19th century, and it is still standing. As I mentioned, right here at the corner of Glen Avon and Oak Hill. The Boys and Girls Club, let me pan around on this side of it. Let's start you off on the other side. As you can get a pretty good view on how much has grown through the years, and thanks to a lot of generous donations and grants and federal dollars that made that possible. It's very, very, very nice. Very nice. Now let me continue to go down Oak Hill. I'm continuing to walk forward down Oak Hill as I'm coming up on Mount Calvary Pentecostal Church, as you see it in the background there, right between Rich Street and Edison is sandwiched right there. Founded back in 1914 to be exact, way back a long time ago, or I would say, let me correct myself, 1911. It actually started in someone's home, and that would have been at the residency of 4498 St. Louis Avenue. They would have studies there for a number of years until they bought their first edifice, and then they eventually would move on to Oak Hill here, and it's been a mainstay in this area here between Regent Street and Edison Avenue, and they've been here a lot of years, if you will. Well, 111 years, if I'm doing the math correctly. Mount Calvary Pentecostal started off as a Baptist church originally, and along the way they moved the mission further, if you will, as they continued to get vision towards what their services would actually be. And then they converted from Baptist into Pentecostal church, if you will. And that's right at the corner. Right now I'm at the corner of Warren Avenue in Oak Hill, as I'm looking back towards Luke's church there. Let me continue to walk forward. I'll give you a little bit more history. Right here in this lot right here, because I went to South High School, if you would continue on down Warren Avenue there, you run right into South High School, which is located, of course, on the south side of Youngstown. Right here in this lot, there used to be a Ohio gas station for a lot of years. Standard Oil of Ohio, of course, owned that. And full service gas station as it was back then. And right next door to it was the Dandridge nursing home. Right now you're seeing an empty lot where Dandridge nursing home once stood. Now the Dandridge nursing home represented the first African American nursing home that was built in Mahoning County, definitely, if you will, the Valley. If you, I could have that wrong, but I'm gonna stand on that and say the Dandridge nursing home was the first black-owned nursing home in the Valley. They moved from here some years ago to the far east side, behind the former Lincoln Knowles Plaza. A lot of people know that, right behind Lincoln Knowles, and down the way there, off of Jacobs Road to be exact, it's the new Dandridge nursing home, which was family owned for a lot of years. They were owned, and I understand that a few years ago they sold it, and so it's no longer under the family control, if you will. Here we are again as I pass Regent Street. Wanted you to see how lovely this building is. And they had a fire around 10 years ago, but they completely recovered from that, rebuilding inside. The inside was gutted pretty well, and they of course refurbished and rebuilt and saved this edifice, and it still is standing tall. As you see here, under the tutorship of Norman L. Wagner, the church vision was to always be progressive, moving forward, doing different things. So they opened the school later on, Mount Calvary School. Had a Mount Calvary football team, the Sons of Thunder. Right here is what Dandridge nursing home would have been, right here in this lot here I'm showing you. Let me continue to go down, if you will. You see that they're advertising a free hot meal program that goes on at the church. Yeah, Mount Calvary is very progressive. I just wanted to sweep back at Mount Calvary. Mount Calvary, for some of you don't know, as far as the area goes as a whole, Mount Calvary was a leader, if you will, with doing broadcasting and their choir. And like I said, they built a school adjacent to the church. They built an apartment complex right across from South High on Market Street for elderly people. They were always progressive, moving forward thinking church, if you will. Had a lot of members. A lot of members mean a lot of money. So they were able to finance all that. I think their school has discontinued these days. Edison was pretty populous at one time. As you see now, a lot of the residences have been torn down. Those homes are history. And slowly but surely, Mount Calvary purchased a lot of those properties. As I continue to walk down Oak Hill here, a lot of history I could talk about here. Down there you got CCA. They're a big pillar in the community. They're doing a lot of things there. Let me pause this until we get our safety forces en route to somewhere. I'm going to continue to walk down Oak Hill. Okay, I am back. I did not want to compete with the first responders as they are en route to an emergency call. The home I'm looking at now is called Cook's House. The Cook family opened a little snack bar and candy shop right out of the back porch area of their home, as you see there. And they were a mainstay for people on the south side living in this community. Let me look back and show you where I've come from as I continue to walk by Blossom on Court now, and I'm headed towards Willis Avenue. I'm going to keep walking here. try to be talking all the way, tell you about a lot of the different homes and things that cascaded this community through the years. A lot of grand homes as you see across the street. I got the camera on the home. Gives you an idea how big the homes were back then. These were family-sized units that they could easily hold 9 children plus the adults, 11 people. And that's how it was growing up in the 60s. When I'm a child of the 60s myself, growing up, there were large families. Large families. You don't see that anymore. Here are some more homes. That's a duplex there, and you have some dwellings there. It kind of gives you a feel of how the community was. Back in the height of the steel industry, these homes were immaculate, for everybody had good jobs and had money, and they could take care of their, again, cooks, hair salon slash eatery slash candy shop. Let's continue to triculate and go on down Oak Street here. Here's another view of this big, one of the big homes. I'll give you a side view there. And right here I'm headed towards St. Patrick's Church. You'll see it in the nickname St. Pat's. The school they used to be right next to it, they had a school as well. It's the Southside Academy now. Prior to that, some years removed, it was New Hope Academy, headed up by the Emler, Dr. Emler, Sylvia Emler, was the principal of that fine school back then. My son attended that school, so I have a little partiality, if you will. But it was a very, very nice school. He went there from the 1st grade to the 6th grade, and then he went off to Youngstown Christian, which is called Valley Christian School today. They're good. There again, it's a good idea of some of the homes and how big they were, how grand they were. These were big homes, if you will. I'm at Chalmers in Oak Hill now. I want to pan around here to this site here. You can probably pick up on where it was the former site of the Clarence Robinson Recreation Center, if you will, slash everything. It was everything to the black community. I'm going to stay here just a pause for a cause, if you will. Clarence Robinson was an attorney, an African-American attorney, back during the 40s, 50s, 60s. He sat on the Youngstown Parks and Recreation Commission. He was able to get a lot of things happening at the parks as it pertained to the African American community. You could come here and get your immunizations. Back then, I remember coming here and getting my shots as a kid, making sure my shot record was taken care of. Yeah, Clarence Robinson, a lot of people didn't know, as being a very outstanding attorney. He was the grandson of P. Ross Berry, a popular architect, master stonemason, a gentleman who built most, if not, I would say a lot, if not most, of the early downtown buildings, if you will. If you know P. Ross Berry's story, then you know his story real well, because he was the early framer of the community. As I continue to walk down, if you will, yeah, right here at Chalmers and Oak Hill. Just wanted to pay tribute. Let me look again there. I went to the Clarence Robinson Center as a kid, and I actually met my 4th grade teacher there. I didn't know she was going to be my teacher until I went to school that September. Back in the day, out in Youngstown, I used to go to school one day after Labor Day, the next day. And it's different today. August 24th today, Wednesday, represents the first day of classes for the Youngstown City School District. It was different back then because they're going to be out again for the Labor Day holiday, if you will. As we continue to move down to Oak Hill, we're moving towards St. Pat's there again. St. Pat's came on board in the early 19th century as well. Very, very well represented. I want you to get a good feel for the architecture as I walk up on it. See that architecture? They call Campbell, Ohio, the city of churches. But Youngstown, when I was growing up, had a church almost in every black community, or every black neighborhood, I should say. There was a lot of churches that represented the black community, is how I should say it. A lot of churches. St. Patrick's, Catholics, yeah, there are black Catholics as well, and so went to St. Pat's as well. But outstanding church, still standing tall. Yeah, St. Patrick's Church opened on May 24th, 1911. So if you do the math on that, 110-year-old structure. Still standing tall. They took very, very good care of the roof as you look skyward there. See how tall this church is? Most Catholic churches always are skyward built tall, aren't they? They build real tall. You have the rector's house, if you will. The priest's house was right next door. And that's what you see, the 10 brick structure there represents where the father of the church would have stayed in his family. I don't know what they use it for now. It's still a part of the Diocese of Youngstown, a very stable structure where there's a lot of years in that building. And now you can see the tan building, you can see the hues of the brown, slightly tan brick, and how it's held up over the years. Of course, this was built after the original church, which came online there again in 1911. A lot of structures cascaded down Oak Hill. I'm going to sweep and look backwards here. At some of these structures, most of them, I have to say, have been torn down. This has been repurposed, this area as a garden, one of the many, many community gardens, if you will. Pan around here and you can see those gardens. They're trying to use these spaces, these abandoned spaces, or lots as green spaces. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. Oh, I see we have a free library, one of the free library stations that you typically see around the valley as you're walking along. You can share these books and bring them back if you want, or put books into your own. It's kind of like a free if you will, library system, where they honor system. You come in and you get a chance. I'm going to get a shot of the placard that sits out here on the restoration of the St. Patrick's Rectory in 1990. Okay, in 1990, 21 years removed, they did, or 22 years removed, sorry, they did a refurbishing job on this house here. I'm going to cascade down here, let you see all the levels of this house. All right, see that roof? Very, very original Spanish influence, if you will, ceramic roof tops, if you will. And here again is a shot of the rector's house. And I'm going to come right to the front of this massive building. I want you to really, really get a good look at it. How tall it is, as I call it. St. Patrick's Church is a very, very grand structure. One of the grandest structures in Youngstown. I want to cascade up and down here for you. Come up a little bit. You see how it's adorned up top with the, there it is, the art pieces, has it adorned. Now there's a phrase for that kind of cement or masonry kind of work. I'll say cement. Masonry is more inside because it cracks, or masonry or plasters inside mostly, and that's concrete work, bar none. And as I come down, you can see still has active services here. Of course, the congregation isn't as big as it once used to be. Right next door is where their school was, as I mentioned to you. This was their former school. Now it's the South Side Academy, home of the Warriors. It is now in the 1400 block of Oak Hill Avenue. I'm going to continue to go forward. I want you to get a good look at this school. So as I come down to this point here, I want to cross over. Okay, I'm going to cross over, and I want you to get a good look at the schoolhouse, how it's situated. There used to be other homes, as you know, trimmed across the street here. Now this is a parking area, bar none. Here it is. Here's the world's famous. When I was a kid, this was a very, very famous school. I always wanted to go here, so to speak, but it's tuition based, and Youngstown city schools are free. Public education is free. Everybody went to St. Pat's, eventually went on to Cardinal Mooney, one of the other systems within the Youngstown Diocese, if you will, with their schools, etc. The school came on board in 1913, a couple years after the church opened, if you will. The Needle's Eye is a good program that works with substance abusers, if you will, within our community. This is the former Lawson's store, if you will, For people that grew up in this area, they know that this used to be a Lawson's, if you will, but now it's a Needle's Eye, attending to the needs of people in our community that need assistance. And the Needle's Eye is one of those places that have a real good reputation of service to the community at large, and doing it well. They're still a mainstay in this community after 30, 40 plus years. The Needle's Eye is still doing the work on the south side. Now, as I come down Oak Hill, you'll see some of the other structures and homes that still dot in certain areas here. You see it, what used to be, of course, a gas station / another business. That's really telling its age, if you were right there. That structure looks like it's back during the Art Deco days of the 30s, if you will. Art Deco was a popular construction or architectural process that was done to save people money. They wanted it to look stylish, but be cheap, because we know that the Great Depression went from 1929 all the way to about 1939, or rather 1921, rather, the crash of the stock market. And then by 1929, we were coming out of the Depression. But there are people recovering financially, and they didn't have deep pockets. In these buildings, the Art Deco style represented a cheap man's version of getting styled, if you will. Really want to hang on that building there. High speed. And some of you out there looking at this may be able to chime in on what this building used to be, as I walk almost right up to the front door. You can see how that Art Deco, I want to pan down as I come down this building here, and I want you to see how this building really looks. It's hard to imagine unless you were in person. If you were in person, you could see this a lot better. But there it is. I want to give you a good idea of what that looked like. Okay, I'm looking back over my left shoulder now. I'm coming down towards what used to be a major beer distributor in Youngstown. They had all the big beers: Pabst Blue Ribbon, Miller Beer, Budweiser. All those top brands were represented here at this warehouse, but it's something else now. Top distributor. They send beer all over the place to clubs and supermarkets and liquor stores, etc., etc. And there was a lot of beer, if you will, flowing through this building. I'm a witness to that. Right up the street is Hillman Junior High School, and it reverted to an elementary school for a while, and then back to a junior high, and then eventually it got torn down. But it was right up the street. This is Garfield. I'm at Garfield now. I had my first summer job at that school, and I remember this area very profound. There were gas stations, other light commercial expanses down here. I just wanted to look back at St. Patrick's Church and school to give you a point of reference where I am now. A lot of the sidewalks I'm walking over now are from the WPA era, and it's a shame to see that a lot of this vegetation is overgrown. It's grown over the sidewalks. Of course, at Garfield and Oak Hill, as I'm panning down a little bit, you can see what I'm talking about. A lot of the WPA era sidewalks have timed out, cracked, lifted up, or just simply Mother Nature has reclaimed them, if you will. We're going to continue to walk down now. This building here has been repurposed. It is a tech weld place right now. I do quality welding and stuff like that for the welding industry. I took welding in school myself at Chaffin Career Center. Now it's called Chaffin Career and Technical Center, CCTC. They have a good welding program there. It's good to see that this building has been repurposed. See right there, tech weld, doing it well. And I'm going to continue to walk down Oak Hill here as I'm headed towards one of the Ohio Edison substations, one of the many substations littered throughout the valley, if you will. This is, I don't know the number on this one here, but this takes care of the lower south side area as we're headed on down the line. You can see a modern feature here using solar panels. I'm at Braden now. You can almost see the space. I'm going to pivot around. What the trucks would pull up in there, inside docks, and they would receive the beer. Back in those days, I'm going to cross across here. I think I might go to the other side. Yeah, let me go on to the other side as I'm filming now up Braden. That's Braden Street. Some of the homes are still there. Homes used to litter this whole expanse, if you will, mixed in with light industrial, if you will. And you can see where I come from. Mighty long way, and I got to walk back too. Head down, you can see the substation, and that's just represented in that architecture. I love architecture. For those people that know me, I know that I love architecture. You're about to see a building built like they don't build them anymore like this. They want to do this prefab stuff and put up buildings real quick, and they lose some of that authenticity, that original look, that I call that antique kind of look about them. These walls were built tough back then, and they have stood the test of time. This building here, I think, came online in the late 30s, if you will. Some of it is starting to crumble, but man, almost 100 years, this building is still standing, if you will. I want to really let you see what the Oak Hill substation looked like. And here's, I'm right in front of it. I want to pan down, let you see some of the brick architecture work I was talking about. All right. This was gone before P. Ross Berry left here. He left here in the early 1900s. And he built a lot of original buildings downtown, as I mentioned earlier. And maybe his sons had something to do with this. I don't know. His sons, he had 4 sons, and they followed him in the bricklayer's trade and would go on to build buildings and schools and roadways and just all kind of stuff, as well as starting the local 8 Bricklayers Union, which is now located up on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. I'm coming up on the Partners Jazz and Blues Lounge. What that building was repurposed. It used to be something else a long time ago. If you go down to Essex Street there, you'll see the Youngstown Community School. Inspiration behind that was Sister Jerome Cochran, who we lost a couple years ago. She was a member of the 100-Year Plus Club. A very, very blessed woman of God. Once you see this side, as I talk about the substation again, and how it serviced the community. There used to be big power trucks parked there and stuff like that as a kid. Thought that was pretty neat, seeing those lineman trucks parked there. As you can see, all these vacant areas were light commercial. I want to pan to the parking area here, what used to be a parking area. I call this light industrial. You can see the Youngstown Community School a little bit better right there. We've just passed by Carroll Street. Okay, now we're starting to go downhill. It should be a little bit more easier for me, so to speak. I'll be on cruise control as far as that is concerned with walking, that is. Yeah, the Jazz Partners, the Partners Jazz and Blues Lounge. I logged a lot of hours here. Had a lot of different groups in there and dancing, and spent a lot of my youth in there, my 20s. When I came out of high school in the Army and stuff, I started partying around. This is the part of the Oak Hill our community. They like to call it the Oak Hill Collaborative community, if you will, because the Oak Hill Collaborative, which I'll show you when I get down the street there, they built and sponsored a lot of the different things. You see, I want to pay homage to their signage there. The homage, the Oak Hill Collaborative Pennzoil Park. Okay, and this is what they're trying to do to beautify some of the corners that are vacant, to turn them, as you can see, the landscape architect there. That area over there needs to be addressed too, for it's not a lot going on over there as well. I see this street here just got recently paved, and that's a good thing. It has been paved, and give you a real good close-up shot of the Partners Jazz sign. There it is. Yeah, I logged a lot of hours jamming in there, having, if you will, a good time. This is Falls at it intersects with Oak Hill. You can see Some of the community is still intact. There's a few new homes sprinkled right into what used to be real heavy residential a community at one time. Well, a lot of those spots have gotten torn down as people moved away. Youngstown has reduced its numbers through the years. In 1930, Youngstown used to have 170 plus thousand people. Now we have slightly over 60, between 60 and 65,000. And I always say that because they'll say officially 60,000. But a lot of people don't do the census. They're in hiding, so to speak. And they don't do the census. They don't take part in the census. They're kind of invisible, if you will. They don't vote and stuff like that. So those people aren't on the rolls, so to speak. I'm going to continue to walk down. You're looking at the former juvenile justice center. I don't know if they repurposed this building, but like most brick structures, they stand the test of time. They really do. This building has always been there through my years. I'm up in the 60s here, and that building right there was there my whole childhood. It was a representation, not to get yourself in trouble. The JJC, Juvenile Justice Center, you didn't want to go there. If you went there, you were in trouble. You had messed up as a youth, and they used to have their own in-house feeding programs, and they had a court in the back where they could play basketball. I want to turn around and get the backside look of the Youngstown Community School. There again, I gotta watch these sidewalks here. Some of these sidewalks are treacherous, so if you're not paying attention, you will trip. On the back, nature is reclaimed. There used to be a basketball court for the JJC facility. I'm going to show it again. It's located on the city's north side now on Scott Street. I think the Martin P. Joyce is named after a person, and they moved it over there. Brand new digs, if you will, brand new facility. I'm coming up, I'm going to show you this one of the few streets right here. I'm going to give a good high view of that. One of the few brick streets that remain. It don't look that caved in. A lot of those buildings are caved in anymore. And when I say that, they're very, very dangerous. Like a deep pothole. So I don't like driving down those streets at all. Kind of dangerous. I'm going to continue to matriculate down the street. Oh, that sign company was always here when I was a kid. They took off the first part of the name there. But the building is still standing there. Again, brick. See that? Brick structures stand the test of time. Now I'm coming up on Lakewood, I believe. Yeah, coming up on Lakewood here. I grew up on the city south side, so I know a few of the streets and highways and byways and back alleys, if you will. Yeah, that was the place you would go. If you wanted concert posters printed out, for sale signs, purchase signs, just have general advertisement signs, that was the place to go. Hey, somebody has here, this area here has been repurposed. It's the drive-up prayer, if you will, setup. You can come in here by appointment. Okay, I see it's by appointment these days. It used to have, you drove up, they came out, they prayed for you, and you drove out. But now they have it by appointment. Somebody spent some good money and had this build private residency as compared to a corporation of some type. And with that said, they just want to continue to offer prayer for our community. Here's the signage that goes with that. All right, how unique. You just drive up. It used to be you just drove up, but now you got to come in by appointment only, I see. Okay, let's call that the prayer shack. Okay. Yeah, Jesus Christ is the answer to all our problems, it says. Yes, if you're a believer. This is one of the houses that stood the test of time. I just wanted to swing around and let you see this home. There again, this home represents how big homes were back in the day. And big family size units, if you will. This property right here, I'm going to pause when I get up here. I'm starting to pan over to it now, and you can see how it's been repurposed to some degree. Over here, it used to be a club called the Casablanca. It was a pretty popular place. If I brag, when one of my uncles, my Uncle Joseph, played drums there sometimes during the 50s, late 50s, 60s, into the early 70s. This was the happening spot. You had groups like the OJs and James Brown and different groups like that would come through, Jackie Wilson. People like that, of that caliber, talent, would often come to Youngstown on their way to Cleveland or Pittsburgh or whatever. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the entertainment scene in Youngstown. You had the Elm Club on the north side. Of course, you had the, if you will, the Ritz Club on the city's east side. And you had the Casablanca. You had Reed's Arena on the south side. And sometime Idora Park Ballroom was on the south side. And you had entertainment there. So you had entertainment all over the place, even into Struthers and areas like that. As coming down this way, you can see the Oak Hill Collaborative signage right there again, where they are taking on sponsorship of that corner. Here I'm showing you the south side, how they have repurposed this area right here. About a 4 square block watch, to be exact. They have sponsored this site, and they keep it clean, so to speak. Somebody has let a bag get out their car window. And you can see how these four intersections kind of like come together. Now I'm at Oak Hill and Woodland. There again, the Casablanca, serving a lot of years, became the ringside in the mid 80s to early or late 1990s. So I had a good 20-year run. Local groups there again would come here. You have groups like Levert and groups like that would come down. Now I'm crossing onto Woodland as we have WRTA coming down the way. Over here you see the Oak Hill Collaborative headquarters, if you will. And I could talk about their building as we move forward down the line. I got a lot of background noise going on. I'm going to power through it. Moving quick enough, I'm not picking up on copyrighted material, so hopefully this video doesn't get flagged at all. You're not supposed to have any music playing in the background that's copyrighted, if you will. I'm going to come right up, slice right through here, kind of like Hollywood style. Coming right through here, you can see the Oak Hill Collaborative over there. That used to be a very popular cigar distributor way back in the day, if you will. And then some years ago, Patrick Harrigan's, I should say, purchased this building and repurposed it, if you will. The Oak Hill Collaborative are doing great things in the community. They're able to secure grants, teach people how to use computers and do things like that, get them Wi-Fi connectivity and stuff like that. Here's another building. I don't know if it was originally a church or was repurposed, but this building right here, I'll show you, order of service. I'll get proof that used to be, so to speak, a church. And if I look off my right shoulder here, I'm going to look over this way right here as I pass by Ridge Street. Now this is Ridge. Yes. Over there, if you look straight ahead, is the former Youngstown City Hospital. It was called the City Hospital, Youngstown Hospital. Take your choice. It came online in 1911 as well, or 1909 rather. It was the first hospital in the city of Youngstown. And following Southside Hospital, later on it would be called Southside Hospital. And now it's the Oak Hill Renaissance Place, where there's a lot of county offices in there. So they repurposed that building not too long before it closed. They built a parking deck, so you have a parking deck there and other structures that make up a campus, if you will. A public offices or county offices are there. I'll talk about the Youngstown City Hospital or City Hospital. Both of those names, if you do your research, will show up. Here's another example of a home that made it through the closing of the mills, if you will, and where people started losing money and was unable to keep their properties up. This gentleman here kept his properties up, his property through the years. Southside Hospital, as it was called right before it closed, Southside Medical, represented the first hospital built in Youngstown, Ohio. Following in his footsteps very closely was St. Eve's Hospital or St. Elizabeth Hospital, which is now called Mercy Health, and then Northside Hospital, and then Confaro Hospital. that was built by developer William J. Cafaro. He built that for his wife. He wanted her to have something to do, so to speak. So she sat on the board there and all that, and she was able to service that hospital for a lot of years. Here's this nice structure. I just have to brag on it. They kept it up and running for years. A very, very grand structure. Very grand structure. I'm getting ready to come up on, this is what's called Newcourt here. I'm getting ready to come up on what's called Joseph Street. I like to think it was named after me because my name is Joseph. But as you see, this is another building that's been repurposed. Somebody told me that Maurice Clarence bought this building. I don't know. He does the red zone activities. I don't see his name anywhere, but somebody told me that. It used to be a doctor's office building, and we had a lot of doctor offices. Makes sense, it was right across the street from the hospital. I'm going to swing back this way again and let you see Southside, former Southside Medical, former Youngstown City Hospital, now the Oak Hill Renaissance Place, if you will, and get a look at that. It was built by the Owsleys, which was a famous father and son architectural team. They built Southside Medical. Now I'm going to show you something else profound as I walk by, coming up on my left here, the Oak Hill Cemetery. Oak Hill Cemetery is a very, very historical place. It opened in 1852. The property was donated by Dr. Henry Manning, who sat on the board for a lot of years. Now this is Joseph Street. I'm going to prove it to you. This street is named after me. I'll give you right there. This street is named after me. Yes, it is. The Oak Hill Cemetery has a lot of famous residents, if you will. A lot of people are here. Families like the, let me get some, the Wicks, the Stambaugh, the Owsleys, P. Ross Berry, the gentleman who started the library system in Youngstown. He served as superintendent of schools for some time. He started a library in his home. Reuben McMillan, I had to think of his name. He's buried here as well. And on and on and on. You get it. There's a lot of famous people here. The Stambaughs, the Wicks, the Zabels, a lot of famous people. Right across from what used to be the Youngstown City Hospital. I want you to see this wall here. This wall is every bit of 1911 when it opened up. Because if you see, I'm going to show you a picture. Coming down here are more attendees or residents laying in final state. You see in the Adams Mausoleum. A lot of mausoleums used to be left open, but a lot of people know that people who own mausoleums had a lot of money. So they had to put security on these because some of them have been broken into over the years. It's a shame. But there's a pitch to the wrought iron fence. There again, Dr. Henry Manning donated the property to Youngstown because prior to this, strange as it seems, we were burying people in downtown Youngstown. And that's before the city developed and started to cascade outwards, if you will. They were burying people downtown, and they were running out of room. And they realized, oh man, we got to put if you will, a gravesite off to the side somewhere. And about that time, Dr. Henry Manning, this was a farm, the Manning Farm, and he donated the property to what was then kind of like Youngstown Township. And as we grew, we bought more property adjacent to this cemetery. They acquired that too, if you will. I want you to see this wall here. Some of it's crumbling and falling into disrepair because nobody wants to do the work to preserve it. This wall, as in the picture you just saw, was a part of the original architect of the hospital. Now the hospital changed its looks many times through the years. Of course, it got grander. I'm going to sweep up here. It got real grand, real big with the deck and all that. A lot of property. I'm going to sweep there. I'll come across and then down, letting you see the full configuration of this big structure. It's a big hospital. But a lot of hospitals started to be relocated to the suburbs. And they did. If you come down here, it's the backside. Right here, I know this mausoleum to be certain. I'm fuming right over the fence there, straight ahead. And that mausoleum there belongs to the Owsleys. They were an architect team that worked with P. Ross Beard to build a lot of our earliest structures in downtown Youngstown. And grand they were, too. Youngstown, once upon a time, matter of fact, had a grand opera hall. If you can imagine that in downtown Youngstown. I want you to see some of this as I walk by it. Okay, I'm going to sweep back to this wall here again. I want you to see this wall. I'm panning real slow on this wall. You can see, just by looking at it, they just don't build stuff like this no more. And if they do, they have to find a company that specializes in renovating and preserving these kind of walls. Because this kind of style goes, wow, 100+ years ago, you know. Those companies that built these walls, of course, are long gone. As you see, Oak Hill is a semi-busy corridor. There's a lot of traffic that flows up and down this corridor, headed to, it's a link, a real big link between the north side of Youngstown, the downtown central area, to the south side. And then, of course, out to Boardman, Ohio. So you see some of that there. Very quick curve, so if you ever come down Oak Hill heading towards downtown, slow down. Is it a real quick curve? They had to put this guardrail system here because people kept crashing into the graveyard. During the winter especially, as you know. They failed to negotiate the curve. It starts about right where this Jeep is, and it curves around, so he's outside the line there to be a fact, because everybody's in a hurry. You put speed in a sharp curve and a little ice down, it's all over. You can see evidence here where somebody ran into it during the winter. I'm going to let you see that. Yeah, this all proves my point. This is kind of like the backside. Looking up here is some of the original sections, if you will, and you can see how they build onto it right there. So I just wanted you to see the original back portion. I would say it's close, or the oldest portion, let me put it that way. The oldest portion of Southside Medical, as it was called before it closed. And as you can see down there, the Peanut Bridge, as we like to call it, but it's the Fireman's Memorial Bridge, to be exact. You see some of the graves there. Colonel John B. Husted. He was one of the guys that officiated at the Civil War monument that was built in downtown Youngstown. Yeah, he lived to 1911, so yeah, he was alive. Colonel John B. Husted. I'm going to come on around here and you can see another substation now. The Southside Medical Facility was so gigantic, if you will, so big that it had to have its own almost separate power grid in case something happened with somebody running into it or a bird getting in the lines, you know, all that stuff that can happen. They build and purpose their own substation or terminals. I'll let you see a little bit again. Here's some more digs here at the Oak Hill Cemetery. And you can see how it gets its name, the Oak Hill Cemetery, because this is a real hilly piece of land. Very hilly piece of land. Can you imagine how it was for them to plow this back when it was a farm? Woo, that was some hard plowing. But you're going up and down these hills and you got your heavy work boots on and you got your horses. There's some more brick wall up there, I see. Let you see how that looked. But yeah, the beginnings of Youngstown City Hospital was framed by this wall. This wall is very synonymous with the hospital itself. This used to be actually a functional staircase, as you can see at one point in time, as it probably led to a portion of the hospital that was a little bit lower back then. So because right now it's a step staircase to nowhere. Okay, well, I'm timing out my walk past the Oak Hill Cemetery. I've got some more stories for you as I walk along. We're coming up to the I-680 overpass. Now the I-680 overpass represented, if you will, the building, what they call back in the 60s. They were bringing in revenue because they knew revenues from the mills were slowly starting to slip away. And they got a lot of federal dollars to build the highway systems and stuff like that. So during that acceleration in construction, highway construction, if you will, Youngstown took advantage of it. You know, those were urban renewal dollars, and they were there for the taking. So Youngstown put his bid in on a lot of those projects, if you will, and a lot of those projects were built. We move all around the valley. You got 680. You got the 7-Eleven Super Connector. You have the Hemrod Expressway. You have the Madison Avenue Expressway. All these expressways in the whole valley, if you will, represented urban renewal dollars that were got. Those grants, those monies that came to communities to open up the cities. Matter of fact, I got in one of my videos called Youngstown Down the Middle, where I talked about the east end of Youngstown that got torn down during urban renewal. A lot of homes. I'm going to share this story right here. You're looking at some blank spaces here that used to be homes. Matter of fact, right where the freeway overpass is, there used to be two churches. On one end of the street, let's say on this end here, you have St. Andrew's AME Church, that's African Methodist Episcopal. And on the other end, what they say is the oldest church in Youngstown that was built. At that time it was and still I think it holds the record in Youngstown as being the oldest African American denominational church in Youngstown. And right across from it you had Third Baptist Church. Literally right across the street from each other, if you will. So when the freeway system was put in, as you see how vast it is, you got 2 lanes on each side. The churches were relocated. Third Baptist was relocated to the south side. Lakewood Boulevard, I'm thinking. I'm probably getting the street wrong. But on to Lakewood, I'm thinking. And on the St. Andrews got relocated to Rayan Avenue for a while, right next to Shopping Career and Technical Center. And that building has been since torn down. And then they relocated to Earl. They're on Earl Street on the city's south side. Here's that curve I told you about. Yeah, these churches go way, 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 way back. I'm going to show you a picture of these 2 churches. I think I'll be remiss if I don't. Yeah, St. Andrew's Church came on deck in 1869, I believe, and then in 1874. Because I want to be 100% correct when I'm searching my mind here with these dates. A lot of, as you will, a lot of churches in Youngstown came online as the African American community moved to Youngstown, if you will. Well, you're moving to Youngstown, 1869. St. Andrew's AME Church came online, and then in 1874, Third Baptist Church came online as well. I just wanted to do a check to make sure I'm historically correct with those dates, if you will. Here's the gate to the Oak Hill Cemetery right here. I see they're locking it up these days. Probably something happened, and they're letting you only come in from the Joseph Street address anymore. They're coming in from the Joseph Street address. Remember me showing you my street up top? This is High Street that runs alongside here. And right here at Oak Hill and High Street is the 680 overpass. I'm going to go right up under the old underpass that I keep going down. I'm going to continue to go down here. I'm going into semi-darkness for a while as I'm walking right underneath the overpass. My voice may change a little bit as I walk right underneath this magnificent structure. It's a very, very magnificent structure down here. Yeah, you could hear how it's handling the heavy traffic. Those are semis rolling over top of my head right now, and how they're able to, so to speak, keep up with what's going on here. Here we go. This area right here used to represent, it's called Pepsi Court, if you will, off to the left-hand side. And I'll let you see that Pepsi distributor that's been here for like 30 plus years now. There used to be a popular roller rink down in this area back in the day called Reed's Arena. Reed's Arena was a civic hall, it was a roller rink, it was a concert facility. It was a jack of all trades, if you will. There was a lot of different things that Reed's Arena offered the people of Youngstown, and most especially the people of the lower south side. They would come here and go skating, if you will. Let me get a proper date on that. Pepsi-Cola Lane, as you see to the left there. Yeah, Reed's Arena was a mainstay in our community through the 60s and 70s and to the late 70s. They had a good 25-year plus run, and they were located at 25 Oak Hill Avenue. So there you go. They featured artists like Otis Redding, Earth, Wind and Fire, Parliament, etc., etc., etc. I even heard that there's Pepsi heading in. I even heard that Earth, Wind and Fire stopped here too along the way. Because remember, you had all those concert venues in the area. You had WRTA delivering people down the highway. One of the good things to come to Youngstown for is free bus service 24/7 just about. So if you want free bus service, come to Youngstown. One of our major assets, if you will. Yeah, Pepsi Court represents this sign here. And right over there, like I say, used to be in this area right here was Reed's Arena. So check the address if you want to do deeper, if you will, research, and you'll have that address I gave you as a point of reference. Yeah, this is a major Pepsi distributor. They've been here all these years. You can see the temperature there. I am starting to sweat, 78. Of course, this is August 24th, 2022. And that's Pepsi. If you're driving on the highway, you can see that sign, and you can tell if you're running late for work, if you will. So always eyes forward on things that are going on around here. You can see a lot of light commercial used to be in this area right here. As you can see the curve, as I negotiated a curve and coming downhill, as I call it. I'm on cruise control now. Where Oak Hill is about to time out, so I'm going to stay with me to the end. I know this is a long feature. It's going to be a half an hour plus. So for people that really want to see this, they'll stick and stay. And for people that don't, they may join me only for a couple of minutes. There's the Pepsi distributor. I want you to see their whole campus. I want to show off that whole campus. There they go right there. Okay, if you look overhead there, you'll see trains moving out. As I continue to walk straight ahead here. This is right on time. This is very apropos as I'm going to terminate my story at the B&O passenger railway station, if you will. I'm going to end up there terminating my historical journey here, talking about the B&O, which stands for Baltimore and Ohio Railway, if you will, company. They had a mainstay in this community for a lot of years. They were one of the first ones because Youngstown had 4 train stations. If I started naming them: Erie, the B&O. I think B&O may have had another, or Erie may have had another terminal on at Hemrod and Wilson Avenue. Please correct me if I'm wrong. There was a train station there. And the former Greyhound bus station, as Greyhound moved from that bus station right beside B.J. Allen Fireworks, and they moved to share space with WRTA. Here we go. As you can see, some of this area on Oak Hill coming into downtown Youngstown has been repurposed through the years. This is city printing over here, to be exact, to show, for example, have repurposed some of these buildings to keep them open, and that's good. You don't want to see buildings just laying around idle for years and not being utilized, if you will. Yeah, the train has moved through. I'm going to let you see a picture, if you will, give you a picture of the B&O train bridge as you just saw the trains going across. This was built during the WPA era, to be exact, so it's still standing, if you will. On across here, this is Marshall Street at Oak Hill, of course, and we got some sidewalk repair projects going on. That's Marshall Street as it joins with Front Street, if you will, and this is, of course, the B&O train trestle as it appears in 2022. I'm going to come over here, and as we go right up underneath this, chances are another train is not going to be coming over for a while. This was a very, very big lane, if you will, at the time. Very, very busy train system in Youngstown at one time. It's starting to show its age a little bit. I'm going to cross up under here and get back to some good light. Okay, I'm coming out of the light here, and you can see some of the structures, like the Premier Bank, for example, that was built by the Owsleys. That's one of those famous buildings I told you that the Owsleys built. They teamed up with P. Ross Beery to do a lot of their projects. I want to emphasize that again. They were a dynamic duo. They were the Owsleys and P. Ross Beery. A lot of those buildings still survive in downtown Youngstown. One of the buildings being renovated today is the former Strauss Harrisburg building downtown. Some people call it 20 Federal Place, if you will, but that's the former Strauss Harrisburg building, and then by the late 70s or early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, it became Strauss building. There was a building right here I want to talk about briefly. The St. Vincent de Paul Church had places all over the United States, to be exact, all over the United States. And they were into feeding people, clothing people, getting people plugged in with help, shelters, and all that kind of stuff is what they did. That building was closed for a few years, and then it was repurposed as an Anthony, called Anthony's on the River. And you'll see why it was called Anthony's on the River in a second. And last year it was torn down. They didn't want to hang on to it and put the money into it to refurbish it. But right there where I'm shooting at now is where the structure was. And then to the right of that was where the parking areas were. Anthony's on the River. I'm going to continue to come down here, right here, and I'm going to round the bend here in a second, because I want you to see not only the famous Peanut Bridge, which is right there, or the Fireman Memorial Bridge, remember? Our little nickname for it is the Peanut Bridge. Our little nickname for it is the Peanut Bridge, and I'll show you why. I think if you look straight ahead, in the center, to the right-hand side, you'll see the Mr. Peanut symbol, if you will. I'm going to sweep around here. This was a tribute to the Mahoning Valley community you're looking at now. Iron and steel, if you will, the steel industry. I think this is supposed to be a mill. Oh, this is steel. Rolled steel is right here. So you got iron, I think it's the first one, and then rolled steel down here. And in the middle, some people may know this, It might be a gearbox or something that came out of steel production. Okay, on the back side looks like a cog, possibly a part of a machine. So you can see that right there. And on this side here, you can see a tribute to John Young, the founder of the city of Youngstown, Ohio, which we're celebrating our 200th birthday, if you will, plus. John Young was a surveyor who was sent here by the Connecticut Land Company. They owned a lot of property here. They sent him here to survey. So this is my tribute to Mr. Young. Let me zoom in on him to let you see a good picture of him as we pay tribute to our city's celebration this year. 200 plus years. I want you to do the math on that. 1796 to now. So that's the math on that. And this is a tribute to him. This was erected in 1996 to be exact. You can see it there. I want you to see the placard. Get a nice good view of the placard there in 2-1. Okay. And John Young, framer of the city of Youngstown, Ohio, a founder. He was a surveyor extraordinaire. They sent him here to survey the land and to get all that information back to their shareholders, owners, if you will, properties in this area. And if you go up, this area is also, this area right here where I'm at now, is referred to as the Mahoning Commons area. So I'm going to do a sweep on that. I'm going to do a sweep. Okay, here we go. Yes, sir. You see it? They got the bridge here. You see the Premier Bank there. A few other buildings there. As that's part of the signage here. Right down that way is WRTA. So you'll see the bus system is very, very fluent in this area. And I'm standing right here, what I call the gateway from the south and the north. Back in the day, before the Market Street Bridge was built, which is now referred to as the Vietnam Memorial Bridge, there was the only way to get to the south side was here. They only had one bridge back in the day, and this was that one bridge. As you see, the traffic is rolling out at the Fireman's Memorial Bridge here. I'm going to cross over to B&O here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about B&O as I end this walk, if you will, this historical walk back in time. I thought it would be a good way to do it in reverse, and I just took a stab at it. I said, let me do this in reverse. I'm down here at the B&O train station that opened its doors in 1905. You'll see the rooftop with the ceramic tile roof, if you will, shingles. And what you see here in the background is setting up for a midweek concert that's being held this summer on Wednesday, right midweek. They'll hold a concert series down there. So people are starting to pour into this very historic site. This is the B&O Railway train station, if you will. In 1913, they had a severe flood down here that reached the height of the second window. I'm going to bring that picture up for you shortly so you can see that. It opened on November 10th to be exact, 1905. In 1971, it would close. Right before they closed some years, so around 26 years in 1926 to be exact, they built a freight house where they started handling not only train passengers but freight. And by 1971, traffic had waned so much they closed it down, so to speak, or almost semi-idled it. And then in the 1990s, it was renovation that was done on it. And it was brought back from the grave, so to speak, and it became an Amtrak passenger service, one of the many that would service this area right here. You're looking at the B&O, it's lasted over 100 plus years. Remember, first opening its doors in 1905, survived 2 floods to be exact. But I got a picture from the 1913 flood, and I want you to see where they call it. This is right by the bank of the Mahoning River, the southern bank of the Mahoning River, and I want you to see that river. And here is the southern bank of the Mahoning River, as I promised you. A lot more active back in the steel days. The steel industry, matter of fact, polluted this river. And through the years, there's been a move on to try to save the river, if you will, to bring it back to the way it used to be so they can get some canoeing going on here and we can establish a river walk. So nevertheless, the Mahoning River, from what I understand, is an Indian name to pay tribute to the Indians that once were in this area, that inhabited this area. Yeah, the B&O train station. Represented, as I said earlier, one of 4 train stations in downtown Youngstown. I left off, I did the one at the former Greyhound bus digs, and that one you had to actually go down the back steps down to the railroad tracks, and you had the Erie Terminal building that's on Commerce Street. They repurposed that building into a whole apartment loft, if you will. And then you had one on the east side at Hemrod and Wilson Avenue, and then you had the B&O. Those were our 4 train stations back in the day. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this journey with me as I travel from the top of Oak Hill, if you will, where it began, all the way down to the Mahoning River, so to speak. Okay, I'm Joseph Napier Sr. If you want to see some of my other videos, check me out at NAPE 1962. That's NAPE 1962. And you'll see other videos kind of similar to this. I have a plethora of different videos for your viewing pleasure. This is one of my long ones, so I thank you for sticking and staying as I covered the history, the entire history of what used to be Mill Street, but what is now Oak Hill Avenue. Thank you, everyone. Take care.